Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 58. Are you ready to join the clan? Today we have Reginald Grant. He's an English teacher, author, and a leading expert on teaching and reaching African American and other urban youth. Hello, Reginald.
Hello, how are you today?
I am great. I'm awesome. I know the clan is anxious to hear your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my clan a little bit about your background, about what you did before you started your online business? Take us right up to the last job or business before you are online.
Wow. Well, I just had 47 students from Paris leave Los Angeles on Monday. I'm located in Los Angeles. And they come over every summer. They bring 30 to 40 kids over. This year was 47. And they stay for 2 weeks. And we work on the English as a second language component with them. Staff of 4 teachers and administrative assistants. And sometimes we have more groups or bigger groups or smaller groups. But we work with a lot of high school kids from around the world and during the summertime. And when they bring tours over, and so the kids come over, we do the English during the morning time, then they go out and see beautiful Los Angeles throughout their days. And this particular group was a group of Jewish kids from Paris, France, and Morocco, and Nice, and all around Europe. So it was a wonderful day. And before I became a teacher, I was just a small-time guy that grew up in Seattle, Washington, born in Atlanta, Georgia. And my parents moved from Atlanta to Seattle to give me opportunities, and my siblings, my brother and sister. And parents just moved all the way across the country, 3,000 miles to Seattle, Washington. So I grew up there and went to high school there and was fortunate enough to have parents that were together my whole life. And they gave us the guidance and direction to pursue our dreams and our passions and find something we love to do and find a way to get paid doing it. So I was a sports guy when I was young and ran track and played basketball and American football. And I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to the University of Oregon, where I majored in communications and minored in creative writing and business. And I went through that adventure and journey and again played American football and was fairly good at it and good enough to play in the NFL and was drafted by the New York Jets and had that adventure as a young man and saw virtually every major city in the United States of America, and most of the time somebody else paid. So that was fun and great eye-opener for me. And I did that. And so then after I played a little football in America here in New York with the Jets, and then I had a chance to go up to Canada and see all the big-time cities in Canada. And it was a little colder than being in America. Especially, again, even though I played in New York, we had a chance to go to San Diego and Seattle and Miami and all those kind of beautiful cities around the country. And then I went into business and did various business ventures and raised money for startup companies and ended up in the software business for about 10 years and built some major websites. Did a site back in, time flies, 98, 99 when the internet was first starting, called virtuallyblack.com, and we launched that and got that going, and Microsoft and Qualcomm and some other companies supported our efforts in that. And then the software boom went bang, and I, decided, okay, I need to do something different. And about that time, I met my significant other, my wife, and then we had a couple of kids and became a teacher. That was 16 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun, and even when you're not. And so after I had the opportunity to get in the teaching profession, I had the opportunity to teach all kinds of kids in an urban environment here in the Los Angeles region, and just, kind of honed my skills and eventually started Grant Language Academy, where we work with kids from all over the world.
Wow, that's a great background. Very busy, Reginald. What is the most dangerous belief an online entrepreneur can have since you've been online for a long time?
Yes, I've been online for a long time, but it's always about being open and learning new things. Even as I go into the new elements of the online business with Grant Language Academy, and we also have publishing company division called a family of authors.com, which is a website where we work with authors from around the world. And we actually do a little podcast with them once a week where we talk to authors and about their books and their journey to become authors. And my journey is kind of unique. I published my first book when I was in college. It was just a book on poetry. And it was just an adventure and an opportunity, and never thought about it again. And then many, many, many years later, my wife was working on a book, and she started writing her book. And I went back to school and got a master's degree in curriculum and instruction with emphasis on teaching learners English as a second language. And during that process, I had to write all these papers. And that's in 2014 when I wrote my first recent book, which is A Teacher's View Education in America. And we published that and got that out there. And that process kind of started. And then my young daughters, my 10-year-old, I have three daughters, my 10-year-old and my 11-year-old. No, she's 13 now, 13 and 10. 10 will be, the youngest one will be 11 September. She was actually born on my birthday. So that's a whole nother story. So she's too much like me, so we have conflict all the time. Then they published a book. My middle daughter, Rachel, has a book called Wishes, Rachel Grant, Wishes, available on Amazon.com. And she published a book about a younger middle daughter or child that had this fantasy and had this concept about always being left out. So she kind of wrote a story about it. And we published her book. That's almost 2 years ago. And then, of course, the youngest one didn't want to be left out. And so then he came up with the concept for a book, and we helped her get that done. My Mommy's an Octopus, which is an interactive workbook for young kids, and she was 9 at the time. She'll be 11 next month. And we published that, and so she's got that and got that out because she didn't want to be left out. The oldest daughter actually has a degree in animation from the film school here in Los Angeles. And again, that writing bug kind of caught me, and then I published a book in 2015, A Case for Bilingual Education, and talking about the fact that we here in America do not test our incoming people that want to learn English as a second language or that are new to the country in their primary language to actually see where they're at. So I make a case for that whole process, and A Case for Bilingual Education, which I've taught bilingual kids 16 years, my whole career. I started out teaching English as a second language. Even my first year, I was just thrown into the fire and learned by experience. And, of course, I've had a teaching credential since 2002. And it's just been an adventure, just being in this process. So my big thing now is to continue to write books. I have a new book that'll be out in a couple of days called Reaching and Teaching African American Males, which is focused on that. For the last 20 years, I've been on the board of directors for the National Alliance of African American Athletes. We presented the premier award in the nation for African American male high school scholar athletes. Some of the top scholar athletes in the country, some of the top athletes. Jameis Winston, the #1 overall pick last year, and Ted Ginn, a former first-round pick, and Gerald McCoy, a former first-round pick, and the list goes on and on and on. So we have about 98 kids. We have about 98% college graduation rate. Many of them have master's degrees, and we actually Myron Rowe, the Rogue Scholar, who went to Florida State and also played in NFL, is now finishing up his residency, become a neurosurgeon. So some very brainy kids, smarter than I was. And so I've been working with that group for the last 20-something years, and I've just been working on an event with mega agent Lee Steinberg that happens August 27th here in Los Angeles at the legendary Visions Theater that's located in Leimert Park, and he'll be here with Bob Grant and Dr. Harold Kraft and a whole bunch of other experts that'll talk about the impact of health and on families and athletes. And we know with all the concussion studies and the movie and all that stuff going out there now that there's a lot of impact related to the health issues of former athletes. And we want to highlight that. So we have an open discussion that will be happening the 27th of August here at the Vision Theater in Leimert Park. So I'm keeping busy.
Wow, I can hear. And then the whole family is all authors. Okay.
Yeah, family of authors.
Wow. Well, you are all now successful. So let's put man aside. How did you know you are successful?
Oh, wow. I never qualified myself as successful. I just, you're a person that just keeps moving forward and keeps doing things. It's all about doing and not stopping, and teaching young people all the time. I'm open to learn new things. And when I started writing the book, Success Stories, Insights by African American Men, which came out in 2016, really I started out working on reaching and teaching African American males. But then the whole dynamic changed. I started talking to people and getting their stories. And all of a sudden I had 18 stories archived by other people. And it was just amazing to some of these stories and the voices of people. And so these men talking their voices about how they've achieved and overcome and faced their obstacles and their fears to just be successful in life. And that's how Success Stories, Insights for African American Men came about. And I think of a story that's in that book where I had a young man from China. Actually, no, a young man that was here about 3 summers ago at the and a young man says, Reggie, you lived the American dream, pro football and all this. And I had never thought of my life in those terms. And that kind of stuck with me. And so I kind of, when I started talking to people and aggregating the process, it just hit me that Success Stories, Insights of African American Men. And that's how we began that process. And we've accumulated those 19 stories, which is available online at our website, reginaldgrant.com, or afamilyofauthors.com, or amazon.com. And that's Insights for African American Men, Success Stories. And just been a great experience to talk to some of these people and about some of their personal experiences and their personal journeys to success. And success is about moving forward. It's not about reaching a goal. The goal is always changing and moving forward. You achieve one thing or don't achieve something. And in order to be successful, you have to have failure along the way. That's part of success. If you have no failure, you cannot have success. I go with the old adage, you have to be playing the game and be in the game in order to achieve. So you can't be afraid of failure in order to succeed. And that's one of the things that I live by. You have to keep doing new things and trying new things and be open to learn. And that's one of the things I was teaching in a school this last semester in Watts, which was where I started 16 years ago. And I was with a group of kids, about 160 kids over during the day in my classrooms. And it was Watts is a very urban environment. That means people are 98% of them were eligible for free lunch in America, which means they are considered economically disadvantaged. But that doesn't mean they don't have brains. That doesn't mean they don't have dreams and visions and creative mindsets. And I think that's one of the things we have to keep in mind throughout the world, that the greatest ideas in the world can come from someone that comes from nowhere. So we just have to make sure the opportunities are available for everyone. And when I was with these kids every day, and again, I tried to be open and learn new things. And they said, well, you wrote a book, Mr. Grant. Why can't we write a book? And I went, oh, okay. And so all of a sudden, we started working together and we were doing our testing. We have a lot of testing here in America for the testing cycle. And I said, okay, what can I do with our kids during this testing cycle? Because they're spending half their day testing and then they're with me and I can't crush them and give them this hard academic stuff. And the light went off and I said, why don't we do some creative things where they can write their own original stories? And so the kids started writing their own original stories and we started editing them up. And we actually ended up publishing a book that just came out last weekend, which is called Visions of the World. It's 16 stories by middle school kids. And these kids between 12 and 14 years old. And they talk about all kinds of subjects. You have some fantasy stories. Riptide is about a superhero guy that's afraid of death and talks about death and he's always dying. And another guy's got this, they call Burger Man and the Guardians, which he's, and these are middle school, so they with great stuff. Another one talks about a young lady, and it's a serious subject. She talks about she meets this guy in a coffee shop, and she goes through the whole process, and they're kind of flirty and all this kind of stuff. In the end, she leaves a journal, and he picks it up, and he sees that she's dying.
Oh,
And so it was a
that's a
serious
bit
thing. And there's
a
oh
bit
my
scary.
God, it's just it's so well written, you never know until the end,
Wow.
right? It was
Wow.
just amazing. I was just wow, blown away. Another one talks about someone that's dealing with abuse and her mindset of how to overcome that challenge. And another kid talks about bullying. It's just 16 kids that wrote 16 stories, and I had another 20 or 25 that didn't make it in the book because they just didn't go through the whole process. But it was
Okay.
just amazing to put that together with these young people. And again, these are kids from an urban environment that have seen many things in their life. I had many times when I start a new class, I have kids write autobiographies so I can learn something about who they are and how to personally motivate them and connect with them. And one of
Okay.
the
So to
five of the
you that is a success because you said if you are moving forward, so that's what you call success.
exactly. You have to
Okay.
be moving. You have to be doing. You have, as you so well know, it's about doing things and making the effort. Effort is everything. You have to be in the game in order to make a difference, in order to score a goal. If you're not
Okay.
in the game, you're not playing. If you're not doing, it can't happen. So you have to be okay with failure. We all fail. That's part of the process of achieving and being successful. You have to, oh, I did this and it's wrong, and let me try this, and this works or this doesn't work. And even with the book selling process, it's a complete new genre, a complete new deal for me. But I went through the last 3.5 years of learning the process and the business of books and the whole dynamics of it, and
Okay.
just learn by trial and error.
So what is the most valuable thing your mentor has told you while you've been learning through your becoming an author and a publisher?
Oh, well. Again, I read every day, so I read a lot of stuff from a lot of different people on LinkedIn and CNN and every other
So you don't have a
writer.
mentor? Don't you have a mentor?
Well, I have a mentor teacher that was my original teacher when I was beginning to teach 16 years ago. At that time, she was writing a book.
Mhm.
And so I talked to Emma. Her name is Emma Price, and she's actually penned her second book. And Miss Price was talking to me about becoming a teacher and all the things I needed to learn. And she shared with me the fact that she was writing this book for young people. And we started talking about that process, and
Okay.
it's stuck in the back of my brain. And so she's one of the people that I talk to. I have another associate that actually writes fantasy books. And she's a published fantasy writer, and she writes books all the time. And she's been very successful in her genre. And so I have a couple of mentor teachers that I've connected to and
So
latched on.
so between all your mentors, what is the most valuable thing have you got from them?
As a writer, you have to
Yeah.
write every day. I don't care what you're writing. You have to write every day, and you have to read. You have to be open to receive the information in and see what people in your genre, how they write and the styles and how to develop characters. Or I'm much more of a fact-based writer, in my opinion, and about things. So it's about being open to new information and receiving that information. It's about being willing to go out on the limb and actually do something.
Okay. So what is the most valuable thing have you ever given away? I know you are busy.
Oh,
Yes.
I think the most valuable commodity in the planet is intellectual property and knowledge. And knowledge has no value if you don't share it. And that's one of the reasons I got involved with the National Alliance of African American Athletes, because I wanted to help young African American males who I come from that space that want to achieve. And I felt sometimes like the Lone Ranger when I was playing sports and in a locker room, and everybody thought they were going to play football and professionally and be an athlete for all their life. And I quickly understood and realized, and I think from the background of my parents, that you can't do that forever. You can't run fast and jump high forever. And so the education is important. But I think knowledge is my most valuable commodity, and that I share with people, and I continue to share. And I'm open and willing to just talk to anybody anytime and have a conversation.
Okay. So where do we find these success stories insight by African American?
You can find that on reginaldgrant.com. That's ReginaldGrant, reginaldgrant.com. You can find it on our companion sites, my books and my kids' books, on a family of authors, AFAMILY of OV, OF authors, AUTHORS.com, or of course Amazon.com. All of them are available on Amazon.com, and they're in hard book copy. They have Kindle or ebook versions. And actually, we're finishing up the audio book version of Success Stories, Insights by African American Men, that'll be available in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so clan, there will be more from Reginald in a moment. If you are finding Reginald's journey interesting and you are ready to hear more, come and listen to the full version of the interview at onlinesuccessjourney.com. If you are on Online Success Journey already, click on part 2 of Reginald's journey and you'll get lots of tips on how to become an author and gathering your own tips and make it your own journey. And don't forget, you can access all the other Online Success Journey interviews podcasts on the site as well. So that's a wrap, clan. Remember, success is a journey. Patience and Reginald, join us in part 2 at onlinesuccessjourney.com.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com. Filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.